Sorry about that. So July 15th, we're out camping. Said he wasn't feeling well. Get to the hospital, severe dehydration. Initially what I thought. His kidneys were a little affected. So they kept us down in the ED because our hospital was pretty full at the time. And the next day we went up to the floor. Nothing happened on the 16th. July 17th, I was home sleeping, 6 a.m. My phone goes off. It was the nurse practitioner at night calling me. She explained that Dustin's blood pressure dropped a lot. It was like 80 over 40. And he started throwing up blood. He threw up about 800 cc's of blood at one time, which is a lot, almost a liter. And so they wanted me to consent to getting him some blood, and that they were going to send him to the ICU. So he went to the transitional ICU, which is just a step down unit. It's still an ICU. And so once I had arrived there, they wanted my consent to do a GI scope to see where the bleeding was coming from. So we did that. As they do the scope, they have to intubate him. And so they were running a bunch of tests. His ammonia level is supposed to be 0. Came back at 300, which is why he was lethargic, not really waking up. So the ICU doc is one I work closely with. He came in and he looked at me and I said, leave him intubated. I had a feeling they were going to probably send us to Omaha. So I wanted him intubated then to stay intubated rather than having to intubate in flight. So we left him intubated after the scope, and they were going to try and get us off to Omaha right away. The initial plan was to do the scope at like 1, and the flight team would be there at 3:30 to take us to Omaha. Well, the scope got pushed back. The flight team couldn't come, and they said 5 o'clock they would be there. That didn't happen. Then a storm came in, and so we ended up not leaving until the next morning. But with the scope, it showed stage 3 varices, and you could tell he was in liver failure. And the GI doc said they had to do 10 bands. So their little gun thing they go down with can only do 10 bands. He said he could probably have done more. And there was 2 gastric ones that probably needed to be done too. But they didn't get to that. So we go to the pictures again here. So he came back intubated, like I had said. Here's a graphic picture. I'm a respiratory therapist. I deal with intubated patients all the time. Nothing had prepared me for this when he walked in looking like this. So that was really hard to see. It still is hard to see, and I get choked up talking about it. But he's fine now, sort of. So we stayed the night. The next morning during rounds, our rounds happen around 10. They get to TICU about 10:30. So July 18th, there was more blood. And his hemoglobin, or they had to give him more blood. His hemoglobin kept dropping, but his ammonia level was dropping too, which was great. We were so excited with that. Still not low enough. It was like 150s, I think. So the flight team arrived around 10:45. We made it to Omaha. While there, we met a lot of doctors. Dr. Oliveira, our new liver doc, came in and said he wanted to do another scope just to make sure. And so I said, yes, go for it. So they did another scope, and he came down and found us in the lunchroom or cafeteria and said the bands are holding. But because he was intubated and all of that, they were going to take him off the transplant list because he was actively bleeding and intubated. So the breathing tube was to stay in until he was more awake. They didn't have him on, all they had him was on fentanyl, which is a pain medication. It's a pain medication. So they didn't have him on any sedation or nothing, but he really wasn't waking up. So they're going to leave him in until he woke up more. So July 19th, fentanyl was turned off, and he still wouldn't wake up, not really following any commands. He'd go from one extreme to the next, so they had to keep the fentanyl on just to keep him calm. So they decided to put an NG tube in place, and they started lactulose to get that ammonia level down more and hopefully start waking him up. So I have a few of those pictures here. So this is the 18th, me and my flight, my second flight here. So I got to wear that. And then here is their vent that they hook him to. Of course, me being a respiratory therapist, I liked showing that picture. And yeah, I think that one's coming up. Yeah. So NG tube play started lactulose July 20th. They started an SBT, and so with an SBT, it's spontaneous breathing trial. Put them into CPAP and see if they're breathing on their own and start waking up, following commands and all of that. He was breathing on his own the whole time, did fabulous, but he just wasn't waking up. And with liver patients, they tend to take longer to get medications and stuff, not really digested, but through their system. And so the doctors came in and said, we're going to give him 4 hours. If he wakes up, great. When he does, good. We can pull it. If not, then we have to look at other stuff. So 4 hours later, he woke up with a vengeance. He was like the Hulk. He was trying to grab that tube and pull it out. The doctor came in and asked him to give him a thumbs up, and he shook his head no. So he was a little sassy there. So we pulled the tube, but his hemoglobin was still dropping, so they still had to do another unit of blood. Once we pulled the tube, they ask you, give me your name, your date of birth, do you know where you're at? His response was, I want a new nurse. Our nurse was fabulous. Her name was Sarah. I absolutely loved her. So, but they came back in and said they were going to relist him. His MELD score was a 26, so we were up there, which was great. July 22nd, his sodium started dropping, so we had to go on a fluid restriction. 8 hours later, they stopped the fluid restriction. He was fine, and he was moved out of the ICU. So I have some of those pictures. So here's Dom visiting him while he was still intubated. And then we have the tube is out. That was shortly after they extubated him. They were setting him up. Then he was up and walking. Or standing and then walking. And then just hanging tight there. So here they started him on solids. NG tube is still in place. And then here he is when he was moved out of the ICU. He was really interested in a movie. I think it was Journey or something like that. I don't know. So moved out of the ICU, doing great. July 23rd, the doctors came in during rounds. Again, 1:30, 2 o'clock. And they said, we're going to send you home. We said, it's late. We have a 9-hour drive ahead of us. So we talked him into staying another night. So they said they would round early in the morning. Said his MELD score is a 29. So he's pretty high up on the list. And so we debated on staying in Omaha for a few days anyways, just in case they called us. But we vouched to go home. We were both wanting to just go home. So July 24th, almost 10 days later, we were discharged to home. And so I was supposed to go back to work the 25th, July 25th. I ended up going back the 26th. So I worked the 26th, 27th, and 28th. On the 28th, while I'm working, 2 in the afternoon, I got a phone call. My phone kept blowing up. And so I finally called my mother-in-law back and said, what is going on? I'm at work. And she goes, I know, but Dustin got his liver phone call. I'm like, holy crap. So trying to hurry downstairs because we needed to be in flight. We have 4 hours to get to Omaha. So 30 minutes later, Dustin called me and said, never mind. Something was slightly off about the liver. They wanted the perfect one for him. So they were going to cancel it. So we were staying put. We had expected a phone call within that time frame. So August, doing his labs, because he was doing weekly labs at this point. His labs have dropped, and so his MELD score was only a 16. 16. So because of that, he's going to monthly labs. So here we are. He's supposed to have labs, I believe, next week. He went in and had labs done today. So we'll know more in a few days to see how that is. He says he hasn't been feeling good. He actually just called me, which is why I had to stop the video, saying he's coming home because he thinks he overdid it. He was just in town doing some errands, but he's pretty tired, worn down, so he's coming home. So I'll be curious what those come back as. Again, we won't know for a few days. I believe I have a few more pictures from our hospital stay. So yep, there's that one. Interested in the movie. Starting some ice chips. There's him and the boys. We went and we found these shirts. It says, "A transplant saved my life." So we have that. And then I have mine, "Organ donation saved lives." That is packed in my bag and all ready to go. And here he is being discharged. Ready to go. So then we move on to the future, or at least what I know of the future. So future, not next week, but the week after, October 5th, we are leaving to go to Omaha for an extended weekend. Dom doesn't have school that Monday or Tuesday, the 8th or 9th. So we're going to go down. We have our zoo passes. So we're going to go to the zoo since I have yet to been to Omaha Zoo. But October 8th, that Monday, bright and early, 7:20 a.m., we have just a 6-month checkup with his Dr. Oliveira, his liver doctor. So we were told in February, when we had met with him, that we'd have to see him every 6 months. So it's just a routine checkup. But since this last liver call, Dustin had a dream that while we are in Dr. Oliveira's office, he is going to begin a phone call saying that there's a liver for him. So that's what we're sort of hoping. He's still right now listed at a 16, so pretty low on the list. But like I said, he had labs done today. We'll see what those come back as. We are packed. We're ready for our phone call. So usually we'll do labs on a Monday and we'll get a phone call by Wednesday. Because it's Tuesday, we may get a phone call tomorrow or Thursday. We shall see. The team will update us. I know he hasn't been feeling well, so I'm sort of hoping his score goes up. We just hope our call comes soon. Like I said, we're anxiously awaiting. We have everything packed. Once we get that phone call, we're ready to go. But until then, that's what I know for the future. Eventually, soon, our transplant will come. We have our appointment. Other than that, nothing really new yet. I can do an update after the appointment as well. And if we get a phone call or something, of course, I'll be updating on that too. So this is the page to find all that. Wordaments with Alpha One. And so that's the future. Keep us in your prayers. Fingers crossed, lots of praying that it comes soon because we're ready and we're ready to be done with this. It's very exhausting on all of us. So we want that phone call soon. So thanks for watching. Comment, share, let me know how these videos are. Sorry this one's in like 2 sections, but watch and share like crazy. Get the word out. So have a good day. Thanks for watching.